topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Are you ready for Insights to Incite? Ready or not, it's showtime. Now get ready to listen in and watch right here on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Join us and together we will escape the mundane. Insights to Incite, here is your host, Brandon Lawson.
This has been described as not an occasional act, but a permanent attitude. Friends, this is Brandon Lawson coming to you from my home here in Ohio. And I want to thank you personally for joining us today on the show. And I look forward to this opportunity. I enjoy speaking to you and with you. And today, we want to get into a message that, I hope really speaks to you. And I think many times this term, this word, this subject is used in the wrong way, or there's certain elements that things aren't done that actually twist what's the outcome and actually make it for the worse. And I just want to say, if you enjoy our show, we'd love to hear from you. Please message us, let us know. And you also have the ability to chime into the show. You can at any point chime in and leave your own personal comments or inquiries. And if you have a question or something you want me to address, I'll try to get to that. I don't want to make any promises, but I should be able to. And also, if you really find this show helpful, if you enjoy it, you find our subjects, our teachings intriguing, please share this with your friends and colleagues. Tell them about us. Bring them along, send them the link, or show them how to access the show. So here we are. In today's show, I want to speak with you about this term. As I said, it, like many others, is often misconstrued. And being misconstrued, or you could say manipulated, it frequently in turn gets used to increase more evil, to actually enable and empower more evil, to strengthen the people who look to carry out heinous acts against others. Yes, sadly. And I find it even more sad that many times the ones who enable and empower the evildoers, the ones who, actually, strengthen the impact of the perpetrators, are those who say they love us, they care about us. And in reality, I think many of them do. There's other signs that would say they do, but they, in their own ignorance, to put it, straightforward, in their own ignorance, they actually empower our enemies. If that's even the right term. Seems like enemies might even be an understatement when you think of the evil of such people. And here, many times our own parents or people who, are in authority of some kind or some leadership will often enable this filth to continue. They empower them. Yes. I am speaking of forgiveness. It was Martin Luther King Jr. that stated, "Forgiveness is not an occasional act, but a permanent attitude." And while this is true, like most everything else. Truths often get manipulated. They often get twisted, or they'll take a truth and they'll use it, in the wrong manner. They'll direct it in the wrong way, or, it'll be used. Like, for instance, I'm sure you've heard it said to you, you need to give that person the benefit of the doubt. And at times that is appropriate, but not when you continue to allow them to do wrong and wrong and wrong, and never anything's done to stop it. And that's at the heart of what I want to speak to you about, but I'm going to go into much greater detail. I want to paint a picture for you, to show you where you can see for yourself how, these people that many times are not intending to, empower the evil doers, actually are. How does this play itself out? What goes on? So I want to put this into perspective for you. And, so what does this look like, or how does it come about? Well, here's a scenario for you. This is something I wrote to try to help you to see what I'm trying to share with you. It helps if you can get a picture, envision stuff. So the scenario is, this man does stuff to you. He directs his tactics at you, and yet he is very sly, very subtle and crafty in his evil ways. You could rightly say he is a sly bully who enjoys harming you however he may. To tell the authorities doesn't do any good. Yeah, you've tried that, and time again, the results tend to be, maybe not identical, but very much the same. And one thing that's always held true, it's never helped. Yeah, you tell the authorities, and so they'll go to him, and they speak to him, and yet he's just going to lie about him doing anything. Or he might, say he did this, but he wasn't intending it that way. And, that you took it the wrong way, and because you took it wrong, you're feeling something that is not even valid. And so he walks free. Nothing's done. At most, he might have got a verbal warning. Yeah. Well, now, the authorities left and they're on their way or what have you. And now this filth is laughing it up. He's licking his chops like the animal that he is. Yeah. Whereas he was bothering you, now he is tormenting you as he kicks it in overdrive, having the time of his life at your expense. Yeah. Can you see this? Do you get the caption here? What's going on? This bully, aka animal in the flesh, mind you, can be rightly described as a first-class harasser. And even more, you'll find he is accurately depicted as an actual predator. Yeah. Yes. He is preying upon you, just looking for those opportunities to hurt you, to harm you, to ruin your day, to ruin your life as often as he can. He lurks in the waiting. That term prey, as we speak of preying upon you, Prey, and the term predator actually have the same origin. Yeah. So there you have it. Perhaps you've been that victim, or you've known someone who has, your kid has. Maybe they are today. Yeah. So here we have it. And yet, the way our society is structured, the culture of especially Western civilization, and what we allow and what we, in effect, actually accept is empowering these bullies. And that in turn is largely what brings about, what produces predators. Yes, I say predators because they continually harass you. A repeat offender predator. They continually harass you. And chances are they're doing it to others as well. Or maybe it's not you, it's your child, it's your friend or whoever. But chances are that predator's doing it to more than just the one person. And so how is it that you yourself might be contributing to this evil and empowering the heinous filth to continue his or her evil ways, her dominion over another person? Well, I'm going to get into that. I want to hit at 3 specific things that you yourself might do or you've seen done over and over. And I will speak at what it is you're doing and yet not doing. And there's a common theme among all 3 of these points I'm going to make. But there's a common theme among all 3. And I'm going to speak of what each one ends up doing, what comes out of it and the detrimental effects of it. Because each one is contributing to the evil. And you are, in fact, raising that arch nemesis, that adversary. You're raising their hand in victory. By the mere fact of not taking action, you are, claiming them the victor and, holding them to defeat. And if you don't want to do that, then I would welcome you to listen in as we tackle these 3. Before we start into it and get to our first one, we're going to step away for our first commercial break.
Wow, that was insightful. Stay tuned as we go on a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Insights to Incite right here on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. Are you seeking a speaker or coach who speaks life into your people? If so, look no further. Brandon Lawson is one who will inspire and motivate his audience, as well as empathize and relate to all. Reach out to Brandon and let him be your speaker and life coach by sending an email to brandon@connectandimpact.net or calling him at 513-520-7597. Brandon looks forward to speaking with you, to you, and for you. Let's connect and impact today. Insights to Incite, a real show with real-life messages. This show, which can be found on radio, TV, and our podcast, gives us insight to incite us to action and to excellence. Watch and or listen to Insights to Incite live at noon Eastern Time every Thursday on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. Check out our past episodes on iHeartRadio, YouTube, or anywhere you listen to your podcast. Join us each week, and together we will escape the mundane. We are back with more Insights to Incite, so get ready and tune in to listen and watch. Now, once again, let's join Brandon Lawson.
So we're going to get into these 3 specific points of what many people do in trying to tend to victims of abuse. But within these points, we're also going to hear what they do not do that empowers evil, that helps the evildoers, the perpetrators, to carry out evil and to get stronger and stronger, as well as more and more prevalent to where it's all over. I think we all agreed that bullying is a real issue. And yet, much of what people do and don't do is just empowering and more of this. The first thing that often happens is these folks who often mean to do good, often mean good in what they're saying and that stuff, they will say, first, they will tell you what you can do and should do, yet they take no action against that perpetrator. They do nothing to stop that tormentor of your soul. And in doing so, they provide him the freedom. And in effect, they provide him, they give him or grant her permission. Yes, they grant her permission to harass you more and more. An example or illustration of such is someone who is just constantly harassing and tormenting. It might even have some of you in tears at times, and you're crying out to, a parent, or maybe it's a authority at school, and that, and they might console you and they tell you, you really need to forgive them. They speak of how, it does more good for you than even for that other person. That other person doesn't care whether you forgive them or not, but it will help you to be at peace. And while that part is true, if we can forgive, it is unrealistic and, in fact, nearly impossible for a person who's being tormented, being harassed, to just forgive it all when it continues. And the mere fact that those people who share with you what you can do and should do not take any action to stop that tormentor of your soul, they are allowing that perpetrator, that filth, to continue. And they're even, in effect, giving them more momentum, strengthening them as they go forth and just destroy your day and eat away any inkling of joy you could possibly have. And yet, if you don't forgive, then that's just, you got a real issue. But the whole thing that's causing all this, that person who's carrying out such filth against you, who's preying upon you, that very predator, they do nothing to. They focus on you. And another thing they often say in that line is, well, you can't do anything to change another person, so I'm telling you what you can do. And they leave the perpetrator to do as he's doing, to be as she's being, to have at it. And they probably tell you, I'll be praying for you. And honestly, those comments, maybe people not even of the church would decide to pray for that instance. But, people in the church would say that a lot. And those comments have actually had a very negative impact on the church. If you will be praying for them, great, but also be doing something too. Don't say you'll pray and then just, you'll do nothing about the enemy doing what they're doing. but that's often what they do. And this leads to the second point. The second thing they do is they believe and carry forth this lie that says they are not supposed to see to it that this bully is indicted, incriminated, sanctioned, and more. They say, that's not for me to do. We got to leave that to him, to the Father. If something's to be done, he will see to it. I'm not to take action. I'm to surrender to God. So again, you see that within all of this is this portrayal, whether they're doing a mere act or they're really believing this to be true. It's a portrayal that they're looking to do the right thing or they are doing the right thing. But let me ask you, well, even before I ask God, when he, created the heavens and the earth, the world, he created the animals that roam the earth. He also created, humanity. And of all his creation, he stated that humanity was the apple of his eye. We are the very part of creation, the part of creation that he, considers the most dear to his heart. Not the trees and the plants, not the animals, not the buildings or whatever you look to, not, it's the humans. And with that is a responsibility he's given us. And it's also, you'll find that, God, wants to work through humans. That's where he desires to work through. Many things that he desires to do, he wish he didn't have to, because he wished such evil and stuff wasn't so prevalent, wasn't going on at all. But it is. And the ones he wants to work through to rectify matters, to bring about peace, to see to it justice is served, is humanity. Yes. Think about it. As you think of how God works, he's not limited or bound by anything. He can do it in any way he chooses. Yet, when you think of how he does it, is it through the spiders that, you look up at your ceiling and where two walls come together and meet the ceiling at the corner where the spiders there are creating webs? Well, while they have a purpose, that's, there may be some things they do. They eat other insects and stuff that could cause disease. So you might say he's working some to that. But when it comes to bullying and largely the issues of life, it's not through those little insects or spiders or what have you. Sometimes it's through a catastrophe. Case in point, our pandemic. I'm not here to say God brought this on us, but he obviously allowed it or it would never have taken place. And I believe he's using it to grab our attention. And there's a few different things you could point to that he's looking to grab our attention with. And then when it comes to each individual, there may be something that's, grabbing that person's attention. That's not even meant as a society as a whole, but it's for that individual. But God works through catastrophes. And sometimes those catastrophes are, weather related. You have a tsunami, tornado, earthquake. Yeah, something like that happens. Or it's something that, a fire happens or, that burns, maybe you lost family or you lost all your belongings. But more often than not, the way he works or actually wants to work, desires to work, is through humans. And so, to say, That's not on me. That's if something's to be done, I got to leave it up to God. Well, God, the way He often works to bring justice and to stop evil, is speaking into the hearts of us to take action to put a stop, to not sit back and let this continue, to not turn a deaf ear or a blind eye to others. That was largely what led me to stand by an elderly lady that I've mentioned here and there at times. I used to be at her side where most folks thought I was her son if they didn't already know I wasn't. But she lived in a nursing home, and I could not just look past, her cries, and I could not allow the injustice done to her, the neglect, and just act like it's no big deal. She's not my mom. I couldn't do that, and I didn't. I took a stand. I was faced with a lot of opposition. Some people actually, really appreciated me and that I did take a stand, including that elderly lady named Shirley. But more than those who appreciated me were those that opposed me. But I couldn't look past such filth and act like it's no big deal. And neither should you. None of us should. But that's, what happens when say, well, we got to leave that up to God. If it's up to Him, He'll see to it that it's done. Well, this selfishness, which is in effect what it really is, what they're really saying is, God, please do something, but don't drag me into this. That selfishness enables and empowers the tormentor of your soul. And, you may see this play itself out, much like the first one. I console you and, I'm sorry, you shouldn't have to go through this. It's going to get better. I promise. They're hugging you or what have you and all this. Yet they don't, all their focus is to you and, and trying to console you and get you to believe it's to be better, where no focus is put to the evil, the tormentor, the predator that's doing this evil, where they should be focused at stopping that, stopping him, stopping her. Yet they don't. Well, friends, is this really biblical? Really? I mean, you see in each time, the people who do this will actually have a positive light in how, forgiving them will actually help yourself, and all that. So they look like they're trying to help you. And again, maybe they are trying to, and saying that, this is not for me. I need to leave this in God's hands. They're surrendering or they're submitting under the hand, the power, the will of God. Again, seems like they're being godly and good. And maybe they think they are. But is that really biblical? No. No, it is not. While there are times you may hear him telling you, speaking into your heart, telling you to lay low, to wait. When you see an innocent soul, someone who does not deserve any of this, who is under such attacks, and there's such evil, being carried out, and they're vulnerable to this predator. When you see that, that is not a time where God says, just lay low. Don't do anything. Wait. No, it is not. And in fact, I want to share with you some scripture. We're going to turn to James chapter 1. Get this. I'm going to look at James chapter 1, verses 22 through 27. starting in verse 22. But be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. Because if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man looking at his own face in a mirror. For he looks at himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what kind of man he was. But the one who looks for hearer, but one who does good works, this person will be blessed in what he does. Now, here's the two verses I really want to key in on. The others were just a lead up, given more context. Verse 26 and 27. If anyone thinks he is religious without controlling his tongue, then his religion is useless and he deceives himself. Pure and undefiled religion before our God and Father is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. So, that first part of verse 27, or where it talks about what pure and undefiled religion is, to look after orphans and widows in their distress. The term look after literally means to tend to see to it they're taken care of, to take care of them. And it should be made clear that orphans and widows, we might think of that from what we see today, what we think of today as an orphan is a child who doesn't have a parent. A widow is a lady whose husband has passed and she's single, she hasn't remarried. But if you think of both a widow and an orphan, both scenarios, what is common there? You'll notice that both a widow and an orphan is without. What this scripture is speaking to is anyone who is without a guardian, a provider, without someone that's a protector, that is there to be there for them. So when we see an innocent soul, we see someone who doesn't deserve any of this, who's being preyed upon, who's being mistreated, and that we are not to look past it. No. While it is good to go to them and console them or talk to them, we need to do something about what's being done. That is where you look after, where you literally are tending to the orphan and the widow in their distress. So, in this, these first two scenarios, or these first two ways in which we see, how people often empower the bullies of society, where they tell you what you can do and should do, yet they take no action against that tormentor of your soul. And then they believe and carry forth this lie that they are not supposed to see to it that indictments, imprisonments, and sanctions and more are brought against those bullies. They say, if something's to be done, we need to leave it to God. No, we don't do anything. In both those scenarios, both those situations there, they are actually being disobedient to the scripture. Yeah. By not taking action against that tormentor, they show the religion is worthless. In effect, you could even go as far as saying they are denying the faith and showing themselves to not be of Christ. Yeah. Think about that. Yeah. Church leaders, you who lead the church, who do this kind of stuff, who give reins to the tormentors, to the predators, who allow these bullies to continue on, which is where we get the predators, predator or repeat offender. You who just go to the victim and, say you'll pray for them and look to see how the victim must be wrong in everything they're saying. That can't be so. That, or even if you know they're not wrong, you do nothing about stopping that heinous animal who does this stuff. You yourself, a pastor, a minister, an elder, you might be a deacon. You may have no official title within your congregation, but you carry a lot of influence. You are one of the leaders. You, being a leader of a church and not doing anything about this, you are showing your religion, your faith to be worthless, useless. You are actually denying the faith, denying the truth, and empowering evil, giving rein to sin. So, the third way, the third point of how people will often enable and empower bullies to continue their harassment, to continue to have reign and rule, to take dominion over another, is they naively believe this will stop because it has to stop. And in the meantime, they tend to you, yeah, this will stop, I promise. It'll get better. That. And yet they do nothing directly to put away that predator. Yeah. So what happens? More often than not, what takes place is you suffer more and more harassment. And the response is, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, this shouldn't happen. They're at a loss for words. And they're so sorry. Yet they still don't do anything to stop that. I mean, can you see that? Can you see the damage and the damnation? That you are bringing upon that person. May very well be your own kid. You will give account for that. Yes. So here, that goes on and stuff. But, this continues to happen over and over. And, and many times it's the parent doing that to their own child. And yet, in time, that kid gets sickened, fed up, and is livid, and now they got real issues. They got problems, that you need to get help for them. There's been needed help for them all along, but the help was not to treat them, not to drug them with some kind of medication or whatever, or get counseling. It was to do something about the evil. And yet you did not touch the evil, the one who was doing it. You didn't even go to try to stop it. Yeah. And now that kid turns on you. And you're like, what? I'm your parent. They're not supposed to have any ill will or any ill feelings towards you. Oh, really? Can you see that? Do you see? Have you noticed the sequence of how this all goes? How if you would have put a stop or did something, to make this come to an end, to make sure it did not continue. If you would have fought for the rights of that person, if you would have cared enough, then this would not have grown to what it was. In fact, the tide would have turned before it ever veered off to the left. It would have turned to come right back in. There would have been a greater bond to you from your kid, and that you cared, you showed, you stopped that tormentor. You did not stand for it. You were certain. You made certain to put an end to it because you love that child of yours. You care about that friend of yours. Your coworker, is a coworker, may not be a relative, but you care deeply about him. You truly care about her. She is very important to you, even if she's not family. So, friends, this is much like a vehicle. A vehicle, if you allow something to go, if something goes wrong and you allow it to stay, that vehicle will in turn have something else go wrong. And then still don't do anything, then something else and something else, something else. Next thing you know, that car's a lemon. It's a waste. It's no good. You need to look for another one. The same is true with humans. While a car doesn't have a mind that says, well, you didn't fix me, so I'm going to tear this up. Humans do. So sometimes it is a rebellious thing. You didn't care about this, so why should I care? And now this goes bad. Other times it's like the car. It's not even intentional that something else goes bad, but it does because you ignored this issue. Then when this issue came because of it, you ignored that. So now it's this one and this one and this one and this one. Friends, we can't allow that. As you know, this show is called Insights to Incite. I like to share insights with you, things that may not be so obvious, so clear, so apparent to you, or that I want to hint at it. I want to speak to it and not just turn a deaf ear, a blind eye. But I don't share it just for the sake of sharing it. I want to share these insights to incite us. To incite us to be better people, to create a better world for ourselves and for those around us, to do what's right. And here, friend, we must do our part. We must push for justice to be brought. Now, not look past, not allow bullies to continue. Because as I said earlier, it's when you don't do anything, it's like you hold that predator's hand up in victory. You think of two teams. If they come together and the team says, I'm not even going to play, you forfeit. Well, the other team's the victor. When you do nothing to stop that bully, that predator, you are holding their hand up and claiming them to be the victor. We must push and if need be, demand that these evildoers are punished, that justice is brought forth. We cannot look past it. We must not. And if need be, we need to push for legislation to rewrite the laws, to institute new laws, make amendments to the law, bring about new ordinances, new statutes, as we cannot continue to act like it's no big deal. What happens when it's you? It may not seem like that big a deal to you, but when it is you who's suffering from it, you'll see how big it is. I want to share one final quote with you. This comes from Ronald Reagan. He spoke of this in the wake of the crisis that was taken off, that was beginning back in the 80s. And he spoke of it from, the financial side, the economic side, the downturn of the nation. He said, when your friend loses his job, it's a recession. When you lose your job, it's a depression. The same goes for this bullying stuff. Just because it's not you doesn't mean you should look past it or, you're not to be involved. To stop it. We must stop it. Let's be incited to take action against this and to not be those who just console, just give kind words to the victim and ignore going after the evil. We cannot be those people. We must go forth to stop this heinous, this evil, this filth. If we don't, we're only empowering those bullies. We're contributing to the evil, and we're strengthening the forces and bringing forth more and more damage and damnation. Will you be one to stop? Let's be. I know I am. I've been this way, and I will be. As strong as a spirit I have toward some think, see a negative about it, but that's what they're going to see, because I cannot look past this evil. Friends, that is today's show. Now, as you know, we are here every Thursday at 12 noon Eastern on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. We hope you'll join us next week as we go forth. We share more insights to incite. Let's together escape the mundane. Thank you.
Wow, what an insightful show. Thanks for listening in and watching today. If you missed any part of today's show or any other episode, check it out on iHeartRadio, YouTube, or anywhere you listen to your podcast. Now take today's insight and utilize it. Incite yourself to action and to excellence in the week ahead, and join us again next Thursday and every Thursday at 12 noon Eastern Time for another insightful session with Brandon Lawson as he speaks to us and shares some more insights to incite right here on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV.